Hello, everyone. Welcome to the final day of the Virtual Island Summit. My name is James Elsmore, and welcome on behalf of all of the Island Innovation team. We have a very interesting session coming up, and just before we go into it, I'd like you, as always, to fill out a poll so we get an idea of who's joining and from where today. I know a lot of people are watching on YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook, where we're streaming live. So you can also pop a comment in the chats on whichever social media platform you're joining in from. We'll also be recording all of these sessions and emailing you soon about how to access the library so you can find the whole week of sessions ready for future access. We've been getting a lot of questions about that. You can see some people saying hello in the chat as well. Great. So we have a pretty even split between Europe and Caribbean and a few people from North America also. Interestingly, a lot of people from the private sector and a range of different sectors, including environmental services and energy, well represented. So thank you for that. With that, I'd like to invite our moderator, Khadija Stewart, to turn on her camera and join. We're really happy to be partnered with Ecovybz for this session and also CESaRE as well. Thanks to Masao Ashtine for all his work that he did bringing this session together. With that, Khadija, over to you.
Thank you so much, James, for the introduction. And as mentioned, I am Khadija Stewart, founder of Ecovybz Environmental Creatives, and I am beyond excited to bring this lovely session to you guys, and it is in partnership also with the Caribbean Journal of Environmental Science and Renewable Energy, CESaRE for short, and they are a company focused on opening access to information and changing the landscape of the academic journal system within the region. So like I mentioned, very excited and happy to be here and have a very thought-provoking conversation on climate change and bring to you perspectives from SIDS youth across the world, right? So to kickstart things, I would love for our panelists to put on their cameras and quickly or shortly introduce yourselves, and in 3 words or less, tell me what innovation, especially in the climate space, means to you. And I think we could start with Sweelan from Trinidad and Tobago. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you are tuning in. As Khadija said, I am Sweelan Reno from the lovely island of Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean. I am a marine biologist by training and an associate environmental consultant with Advisors Next Door. It's a youth-led and youth-staffed environmental consultancy focused on climate sustainability projects and the intersectionalities within. My background is marine. I love all things oceans. Nature-based solutions is my track, implemented into sustainable livelihoods. I'm currently doing my MSc and undertaking research right now. So pray for me because, you know, the struggle is really heat is on. And yeah, happy to be on the panel here today with all of you.
Lovely. And then what, in 3 words or less, what does innovation mean to you in this climate change space?
Yeah, sorry about that. 3 words or less. Okay, I'll try to be short. To me, innovation is literally the definition of small island developing states. You know, we are basically frontline communities and we bear the brunt of climate change. So from the institutional and financial mechanisms that we have to put in place, the way we store data, we have to have been ingenious over the years. So to me, small island developing states is literally the definition of what innovation is.
I love that, and you're so correct. And we'll move on to Ivory. Ivory, if you could introduce yourself. And again, 3 words or less, what does innovation mean to you in this climate space?
Thank you, Khadija, and Ali, everyone. I'm Ivory from the islands of Palau. So behind me, you see the beautiful Rock Islands. I'm the Climate and Resilience Manager at Sustainable Travel International, where I help businesses and island destinations to measure, reduce, and offset their carbon footprint. I'm also a climate youth negotiator for our Office of Climate Change in Palau, and I'm also the Palau representative at the Youth Policy Advisory Council for the Sustainable Ocean Alliance, along with Khadija and Kamal. And I'm very excited to be on this panel. I would say the 3 words that I thought of were carbon neutral islands. The reason I thought of that is because right now I see a lot of island destinations like Palau that are heavily reliant on fossil fuels. And I think we need to become self-reliant, not only because of the expense that it costs our people, but also for the environment, of course. And I also see that we have a lot of blue carbon ecosystems like mangroves that traditionally over the years, we know how to protect and conserve. And I think sharing that knowledge with the world is very important.
Thank you very much, Ivory. And we will move along to Maisie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Macy Lewis, and I am from Papua New Guinea. I am the Executive Director of the Fishery Project Papua New Guinea. And in a nutshell, what we basically do is we build houses for fishes. And these houses are built out of marine concrete, and they're designed in different shapes and sizes. I have a background in chemistry, and I'm currently pursuing my Master's in Science degree at the University of Papua New Guinea in ocean acidification. In 3 words, innovation to me would mean creativity, diversity, and resilience. I say this with basically as background as islanders, we're very creative, and with our very diverse backgrounds, I believe we have most of the solutions based on our traditional knowledge and all that for most of the climate change challenges that we see today. And I say resilience because many island communities are made out of a strong tradition of community, and in times of adversity, you can see us all coming together and facing, the climate change challenge together. So that's why I chose 3 words to highlight innovation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maisie. I am sure if it was your internet or mine, but there were times when you were going and coming, but I did know for sure that you mentioned resilience, and I love that as one of your words for climate change, climate action, and innovation. That's very strong and very powerful. And last but not least, we have Jeremy. I'm sorry, Jeremy, ladies first. That's just the golden rule. So over to you.
Never a problem. Good day, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Jeremy Laguin from Seychelles. I am an Alliance of Small Island States fellow, actually coming towards the end of it in this December. Basically, Seychelles and EOSIS's climate negotiator for COP27, and I will be following the global stockpick as well as the Ocean Climate Dialogue. And I won't go much more in the fellowship, but just to say that if you're from a SIDS and would love to get exposure to the diplomacy, to the negotiations, to the international environmental law, I couldn't recommend this further. So just check out aosis.org online, and you hopefully will come across a fellowship, and it should be opening soon. Just to go to those 3 words, and thinking about that word innovation in ocean and climate space, also as an islander, I think it's about relooking overlooked things. So like, I think it was already mentioned by Maisie, this traditional or local knowledge. I think there's so many things that's been overlooked that has been in existence that will help our survival, our adaptation, will bring things forward. I think it's also looking at what kind of networks we have amongst islands, how we share our things across. So I think that's a lot of innovation. We are able to see what's worked somewhere, see what's not worked somewhere else, see if we can adapt it, change it. So a lot of this kind of like practice and sharing of knowledge is key. And I think really, yeah, survival is also just part of that. How we will survive will be through innovation, and we will be very much places where ideas are tested and are being tested for others. So survival is a big motivator for our innovation.
Yeah, that's so true. And there's a saying, necessity is the mother of all inventions, or something like that. And I feel like that's probably where we are heading, especially as SIDS, or let's reterm that large ocean states. I prefer that title so much more. And as you guys can see, we have some very qualified and very amazing young people present. And I'm so proud to be here having this conversation right now to really dive into things. I know Jeremy and Ivory, you guys do a lot of work on the policy side and being like on your country's delegation for different conferences and negotiation work and stuff. And you know, as young people in this space, we face a lot of barriers and a lot of challenges. Being an activist, getting our voices heard, like making an impact. And I want to know from your experience, what are some of the barriers that you guys will have faced in that policy space or climate negotiation, ocean and climate negotiation space? And Ivory, I think you can go first.
Yeah, this is really, I'm so glad we have the opportunity to even discuss this and to be on this panel with other young professionals. And thanks to Island Innovation for having this event, of course, and Khadija. So I would start first by saying that in the recent years, I've seen a lot of efforts to involve the youth in like youth delegation at the UNFCCC, for example, or now the Office of Youth for the UN. I think these are really good starting points, but I mean, ideally, I really want to see youth be involved in their national governments and also in these international spaces like the UN, not just because of our age, but because of the knowledge that we bring to the table to work on these policies. So I'm really honored that I get to be part of my negotiation team for COP27. And I get to be a negotiator for Article 6 carbon markets. I do think that this is really not like the norm as of right now for like Jeremy and I. This is really like other delegations. It's so hard for youth to get involved in island delegations and other delegations around the world, right? So I think it's a really great starting point. But I also wanted to share one story that I faced in Palau when I was working there. So I started a consulting company when I was working there, and I worked for the government on tourism and climate policies. So after completing some projects, I decided to apply for a position as a director in one of the offices. And at the time, I was advised to apply for this because of my experience that I had just done working with them, because of my degree, and because of the vision that I had shared about what still needed to be completed in terms of policy and regulations for that particular office. So I went through several interviews and I thought things were going well, but then I was told that they had some concerns that because I was a young person, I might not be able to deal with the older folks that would have to follow these policies and regulations that I'd be in charge of putting out of that office. So they didn't hire anyone else. And at the same time, I just accepted it as the reality and the norm, I guess, for us and our culture at the time. And so that was one example. And I had another experience as well, where I worked with older people in some of the other consulting projects I was a part with. And they advised me, for example, to get more experience outside of Palau, to work in other countries so that when I come back home, I'll be able to help better, I guess, in whatever projects that we're part of. And so I don't know if I agree completely with that, but I did take it to heart. And I mean, I don't agree that you always have to leave home in order to learn something. In fact, there's a lot that we can learn at home, right? But at the time, I did take that to heart. And hence now I'm working for an international company. And I do feel for me, it has been very beneficial because I get a lot of experience and exposure, I guess, working with companies around the world or other island destinations outside of just like our Micronesia region in the Pacific. So it's been good so far. And I still continue to help Palau, like I said, but it's in a volunteer capacity. So as a climate negotiator, I'm involved in trainings and workshops over the last few months, actually, leading up to this COP27. And it's really an honor and I think a responsibility for us to do so. So, whatever challenges that we face, I think through that, at the end of the day, I always feel that we just have to stay focused and really, if you're asked to step up to the plate, you just have to do it, right? So that's just a little bit from my perspectives, but I'm interested to hear about the others.
Thank you so much, Ivory, for sharing that very personal story and like bringing it home for us and like understanding especially our audience, understand sometimes that these are the responses we get to things, and these are the challenges that we face, and it can be ridiculously demotivating, but we still somehow find a way to keep pushing. And like you said, we step up to the plate once given it. So as you can clearly see with this panel. So moving on to Jeremy.
Yeah, just adding on a little bit, but starting off with a bit of a distinction. I think there's external barriers imposed by, other people, and there's internal barriers as well. And I think it kind of goes back to what Ivory was saying when we talk about responsibility for being in this space. I've been in climate activist, a conservationist in the last 5 years, but then taking on the role as an AOSIS fellow, as a representative of your government, as a representative of 39 member states. You have to think about how do you act, and how you strategic, and how you go for it, and that involves sometimes self-censorship, and that can be a good thing if it's in the benefit of your country and benefit of the cause and advancing things. But sometimes, especially if you're coming from an activist view, you can be like, well, I could be sharing this information, well, I could be taking a stronger stance on this. So self-censorship is just something I want to speak to a little bit, because that's something where you have to play with that a bit. You have to understand what you're giving up and how you're doing it. And if you're not careful, that can impose too much of a barrier on your work and what you're trying to do. But it's important that you speak up when it's needed and when it's best for your country. But that takes a while to get there. I think it's a case of then being strategic, because these spaces can be very hostile, or then they can be very, very welcoming, and sometimes they just can be too welcoming. And I think it's all these cases where we're not just youth, we're also witnesses, we're solution providers, we're scientists, we're experts. There's so much that we additionally bring as a young person to these spaces, but sometimes we're youth, and it's just youth, and that can be a bit of a imposed barrier sometimes, and it shouldn't be. It definitely shouldn't be. Youth are driving forces behind the awareness, behind the action taking place in many cases in many countries. So sometimes that label can sometimes be a barrier in preventing you from providing your expertise, knowledge, being a witness, for how things move forward. That would be that kind of imposed barrier on us. I think it's also the case when you think about policy and politics. I mean, the UNFCCC has been around for 30 years now. I mean, you have to catch up with all these things. You have to get into there, but you also have to make sure you're not like falling into the same traps, or basically not, repeating the same mistakes, or, it's also a case of just how much time do we have left, and how much do we have to really, go through things. So I think that's where it's a bit of like, if you're able to have an intergenerational dialogue, if you have a mentor, people who are able to support you, you can overcome a lot of these barriers. So that's something I just want to pay attention to, because when you have 30 years of policy, whether it's the UNFCCC, going to the Paris Agreement, understanding each article, which isn't named, unfortunately, right? And there's access issues. You need people to have intergenerational dialogues with you and bring you forward, as well as you bringing them forward. So yeah, just want to point out there's self-imposed barriers as well as barriers imposed on you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jeremy. I definitely agree with you. And something that both of you guys touched on that I think that I hope our listeners are really paying attention to is the fact that we both stated that we are not just youth, or we don't just want to be seen as youth, but we have the knowledge, we have experience. Like you're hearing some of the stuff that they're talking about and stuff, and it needs to go beyond just, hey, this is a young person in the end. There's so much more. And if it is we unlearn that, then we could be so much more productive in this climate fight. And yeah, thank you guys so much for sharing your points. They're really powerful. And let's move on to Swilan and Ivory. So I know you guys are doing more grassroots work on the ground, developing projects or working with communities. So I would love to hear from you guys what kind of barriers you face in that space, being a youth and ocean climate activist. Maisie, you can go first.
Hi everyone, and thank you, Khadija. For me, well, I'll just share my own personal experience. So as you know, I started the Fisher Project 3 years ago here in Papua New Guinea. So when I started the project, I was an undergrad at university, and I was just finishing off my final year, and then I was asked to start off the project as a hub here in Papua New Guinea, and as an undergrad, like I saw it as like a really huge challenge. And some of the barriers for me personally as a youth, trying to take up this project was, I knew within myself like that I could do great things, but then it was the fear that held me back from pushing forward. Some of the thoughts I had was, thoughts like, oh, you don't have the experience, you don't have the resources, or you don't have the background to do this work, and no one's gonna listen to you, you're too young, and who's going to help you? You don't have the skills and talent, all these different things that come to youths youths at like a young age when they're told to step up to the plate and take on this climate related roles, and to take on these challenges out there. So those are some of the challenges that I faced, but I felt like how I overcome these barriers was just having a group of people around you that believed in you and just spoke into you and told you all what you're doing is we believe in you and we believe in the cause. And I think those words were like seeds of hope that were planted in me that helped me push forward and overcome those internal barriers that I had within myself. And after I overcame those internal barriers, I started seeing the external change and started seeing the project expanding. And we started partnering with different companies, and we started expanding the project within Port Moresby here in Papua New Guinea and to other provinces as well within the country. So those are some of the challenges that I know I'm not the only youth that faced that, coming into this space, but there are other youths that are facing these challenges as well. In my country, we have a lot of youths here that, want to advocate, want to go out there and do things to impact the world and all that. But then some of the barriers that we face here in my country would be cultural barriers. Youths aren't really given the platform to speak up. Usually in like meetings, you usually have like the elders of the community having a voice and to voice out their concerns and all that. And you don't really have youths given a space to speak about things that concern them within the community. And then you also have funding barriers as well. You may have youths that have the capacity, but then they don't have the funding and the tools to bring in that funding. Some people have the funding, but then they don't have the capacity to carry out those different projects here on the ground. And another barrier here would be you have people wanting to invest, but then there aren't enough people that can be trusted, to start the project and then see it through to the very end. So finding those key people and then partnering with them, it takes a lot of trust to, build with different people and then to finish those projects to the end. And then, another barrier would be, I think in my country in particular, I think the barrier for most youths would be, I feel like if they had more self-belief in themselves, that they could actually go out and do something, then you'll actually see them stepping out and doing more. Like if they see someone that has the same skin color as them or as me, or same hair color, or, being on the international stage doing something and, doing big things out there, they get inspired and then they say that, oh, if she or he can do that, I can do that as well. So I think that's one of the motivating factors behind what I do, because I know that a lot of youths are out there looking at people like us doing the work. And once they see us, pushing barriers and overcoming the different challenges that we have, we plant those seeds of hope within them that, okay, if she can do it, I can do it as well. So just having that simple belief in yourself is very important for most of our youths here. They need to know that they have something special to contribute within their own space and within their own sphere of influence. And they have to see it happen. So these are just some of the challenges and barriers that I observed here in my country and with other youths that I've been involved with so far. Thank you. That's all.
All right, Missy, thank you so much. And I fully agree with you. Representation is a big factor, and it's something one of the motivating factors that it keeps me going, knowing that a lot of other young people in Trinidad and in the Caribbean are seeing themselves in me and seeing themselves in the community that we build and could keep going and be motivated to do the work. And that cultural barrier is a very big one. When you mentioned it, I immediately went to, like, here in Trinidad, we have a saying, children must be seen and not heard. And that goes all the way up to, like, adulthood, where you'll be literally silence young people's voices from birth, and all will be like, be quiet, big people talking. This is an adult conversation. And you immediately get ordered or shunned from this space. So yes, anyways, this panel is not about me and sharing my opinions. So Sweelan, let's take it away to you.
Yeah, so I really like this topic of internal barriers. Just quickly, like, imposter syndrome is a real thing. I think I could speak for a lot of us here that we struggle with that. It's a struggle every day to roadblock to, overcome. But more generally, and I think a lot of us have bear witness to this, and personally, this has happened to me. But firstly, I think that youth and youth activism is seen as homogenous. We're seen as a homogenous group, and when I say that, I mean we're very diverse backgrounds, yes, but diverse in our activism and our advocacy and how we choose to channel that, the medium and modes that we choose to do that. And I feel as though maybe the older generation, they think of us as disruptive, and the older heads tend to probably not know how to integrate all the different modes of our activism. So it's very difficult, for us to have that space. And when there is a space for us, I could say that sometimes it isn't done well. I'll throw out that term, youth tokenism. It's almost like they bring us into certain spaces and situations, and we're just there to feel like a quota. We're not there to actually say anything, express ourselves, speak. When we do get a chance to speak, it's probably last, no one is really paying attention to us. So I think that's a huge barrier, because it's like you're still perpetuating that we are youth and we don't have the experience and the expertise. But as mentioned, we aren't just youth, we are scientists, we are project managers, we do a whole bunch of different things. And that's where the intergenerational dialogue, as Jeremy would have mentioned, comes in. Intergenerational discussions and equity is really important to get us all, speaking, get us all together talking. Youth are part of this planet. It's like we live on this world, on this planet, on this earth. Like, there are certain situations that affect us, and who better to talk about our challenges than us? So we need to be integrated into these spaces and on the ground. And when you think of large environmental groups that have been around for quite some time, CSOs, and yes, strides have been made, but there are difficulties where they are being restrained from being observers. They're being refrained from, expressing themselves, lending their expertise, lending their voices. So if it's such a struggle for larger environmental groups to get a seat at the table, I mean, what about us as youth, right? So besides the intergenerational dialogue, and sometimes youth tokenism, there's always the typical financial barriers. I'm in school, a lot of us are in school, a lot of us don't have voting rights yet. So, like, I know a lot of amazing youth that have amazing projects that they want to get off the ground, and moving from that pilot stage could be very difficult. And in no way this is the same, but looking at the parallels of, SIDS. And for some time, we have been trying to advocate and champion for more, I'd say, loss and damage finance, so adaptation finance. And we're moving to COP27, and it's still a big issue. Imagine us as youth trying to access financing. It's very difficult. We have some amazing ideas. We're a unique group, we're innovative. Island Innovation, we're an innovative group, and we have amazing ideas out there. We just need, the backing and the support. So that's my bit for the barriers. And I can go on for a long time because there are many, many barriers. We can be here all day.
Thank you so much, sweetheart. As you can see, we are very passionate about the barriers, and this is because this is something we are experiencing on a daily basis in this fight, in this movement, in this space. And I know you mentioned the imposter syndrome. Like I still feel that at this stage in my quote unquote career, if you want to call it that. And I know plenty others also feel that, and the financial barriers, the labeling youth as being disruptive and all these different things. It's a lot for us to deal with. And we are still very much here and present and working through it. But like you mentioned, if it is existing CSOs and some other organizations have been around for so many time and they are also facing challenges, then Lord, what does that mean for us? Like, how do we as young people move forward in a space or in a system that is not designed for us to thrive, right? And I see we have some questions here in the chat. Now, I am apologizing for being so close to the screen. I cannot find my glasses. And let's see, what do we have here? There's a... Maisie, I see someone is asking for more information on your project in Papua New Guinea. And so you could put that in the chat, but I think this question is very interesting. What is the definition of youth in this context? So I guess, what does youth mean to you guys in the whole climate and ocean activism space? Does anybody want to take that question, or would you like me to call on someone? I think we can go with Ivory.
Khadija, could you repeat that one more time? I was going through the questions and I missed the last part of what you said.
No problem. Someone asked, what is the definition of youth in this context? Oh. So I want to hear from you. What do you see a youth as in this ocean and climate activism space that we all exist in?
I guess anyone between the ages of, is it 17 to 35? Is what they say. I'm 27 years old and I don't feel like I'm a young person, but apparently that's what they call us. So age definition, I think it's up to 35. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I see somebody saying, do you relate to the older generation as irresponsible? You guys see the older generation, the ones that were making the decisions back in the day, the ones signing the contracts, developing the policies and all these things as responsible. Jeremy, I feel like you want to answer this one.
Hey, happy to come in. And I think it's connected to that previous answer, right? I think when we talk about responsibility, we're this connection between past generation and the future generation. And I think that's what youth are. We are leaders and we're going to be tomorrow's leaders. And we're also going to be held accountable by the next generation and the generation we see after that if we're so lucky. So right now, those who came before us are not passing on a planet that will have the resilience, have the resources, have the kind of things that they had. They're leaving off a world that is much less, I would say, in a sustainable place. And so our job right now, the responsibility we have is somehow to decrease and turn that tide on things, like move it on to a better spot. But the challenge has been hard on us because of the delays in working around it, the not wanting to look at evidence and science, seeking profit, seeking national economic interests over actual climate change, actual climate action. So yes, they're 100% responsible, but we must understand that we also becoming the responsible people, and every action that we take or every action that we don't take is making us responsible as well. So it's important to know that we are disconnected between those who may not be here for much longer and those who are coming up right now.
Yeah, I 200% agree with you. And this way that we moving forward in this life still by putting economic benefits in front of things is somewhat wild to me, because like you said, the science is there, the proof is there, everything is there. And when you look at deep seabed mining, for example, and how this is a whole new frontier that wants to be explored, and it's just like basically economic gain, and we're seeing the environmental impacts and stuff associated with it. But again, it's somewhat being ignored, and it's a topic that's sliding under the radar and might start as early as next year. And to me, again, wild, right? But okay, anyways, once again, it's not about me venting, it's about you guys sharing. So the next question here I have is, there are very useful technologies available that needs to be tested on location and island areas, and nations represent a great testing ground. And this is a way that you could gain access through low-cost partnering with developers offshore and as low-cost labor during testing, youth approaching these technology owners. Maisie, you want to take that one?
The question, I'm trying to see if I can read the question again.
So basically, the question is just saying that there are a lot of technologies out there, and that islands could be testing grounds. And with having the islands as testing grounds, and this could be a good way for youth to partner and get experience and stuff like that. And they want to know, like, if this is something, a feasible avenue that young people could take in getting experience and being a change maker in this space.
In terms of testing the technology in small island developing, I mean, for my country in particular, internet access is a very big issue in rural areas. And I think that idea of bringing in technology and making it available for many people in the rural areas is, I think, in this day and age, is something that the communities now are starting to accept. They want to have greater connectivity. Most of the rural people in rural areas in my country don't have access to computer labs or even smartphones and devices such as that. And connectivity is starting to become very, very important. And just to bridge that gap between the digital learning and the learning that used to happen in the past, I think the government now is more open to embracing this idea of testing technology out. And yeah, I think from where I come from, I think we'll be open to having more of this trialed and having it expanded more in rural areas, just to bridge that digital literacy gap in the rural areas.
Yeah, again, I definitely agree with you. And I think that that's something that gets overlooked very often. I remember being on a panel once and hearing that everybody has access to the internet, everybody has a phone, everybody has, and I'm just like, everybody in your world, everybody in your space, like, this is not everyone's reality at all. And this is something that people take for granted quite often when they sometimes speak about new technologies and implementing it, especially on the different islands that we still have so many people without internet access. We still have so many people like unable to use some of the newer existing technologies right now. And also sometimes there isn't really a need for it because the old system is there. We just probably need more people investing in it or recognizing it as like actual science, actual information, actually, that whole idea of indigenous knowledge, and really bringing that to the forefront and not just ignoring it and thinking that we need the science that comes from the labs or the universities, but these people on the ground are also interacting with, nature every day, all the time, and their information and their knowledge is also very much useful and valuable, and we should definitely take that into consideration as well. I see here also, Sweel, and I'll direct this one to you as we're talking about internet. High-speed internet access is a key element now in education of all people of all ages, and youth are particularly in need of individual quality access. So how do we improve this in a global manner, and how will we finance that?
Yeah, I'm just going with the question here. To be honest, improving the access to, internet and stuff like that, I think we need to champion for that, advocate for these things as youth. Some of us aren't able to, we're not in certain spaces to be able to have, that say or the power to be able to, operationalize things like this. So I think the power in us as youth is where we come in with like an issue like this. It's very, very useful and needed. Everything is on the internet. And that's where we create our own spaces, right? Like we are in the digital age, we get information coming to us all the time. We have the scientists and they're always doing your research every now and then. And that is like our unique, I think the digital age is our unique like platform, basically. Like I would like to think like the older generation, they have a lot of things to unlearn. And we are in the age of, constant information, and we're able to manipulate that and use that in a meaningful way. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that, because that access is extremely important because it's like our superpower.
Yeah, it really is, especially like all these social media apps. Like a lot of people complain about it, but I learned so much off of social media when I look for the relevant information on topics, not just all the silliness that exists out there too. But if I wanted to learn something about oceans or see a campaign or something like that, like social media is the place to go and get that information. And it's a very, very, very powerful tool. And it's been a way that we have been able to use our voice in spaces where, again, wasn't really designed for us to use our voice. If it is, we couldn't get into the meeting, then guess what? Somebody goes, makes a video, it goes viral and it talks about the topic and everything, and so much more people see it and have access to it. So I, like you mentioned, Sweel, and I do think that it's a very powerful tool. And before we wrap things up, I would love for you guys to share some words of advice for young people interested in getting into this ocean and climate activism space. And I know you mentioned some of the barriers that exist, but what are some ways that they could possibly overcome it, or, I don't know, navigate themselves in this very overwhelming, somewhat trying, challenging, demotivating space at times. And I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, that's just the reality. And Ivory, we could start with you.
Sure, yeah. I would say, I guess we recognize that we're part of a global community, but we each have to advocate for the places and cultures that we're part of and that we care about. Otherwise, these may be lost eventually in time, as we see happening already every day. We have this responsibility to fight for our planet, fight for our islands, of course. We know that as islanders very personally. And I guess in facing challenges, I think always staying focused on the shared vision that we have, and knowing and having confidence, like as Macy said as well, that have confidence in ourselves and the knowledge and skill sets that we bring to the table. This is really important. I think like having these discussions across islands with other youth, it's really empowering. And it has been for me this past hour really too, sharing knowledge with one another, experiences, encouraging one another, of course. And then lastly, I got an advice from one of our former presidents who told me that no matter what challenges may come, always stay professional. Let things come in one ear and out the other. So I always keep that in mind. And as I said, staying focused on the work. There's a lot of things that need to be done. And if we're not going to do it, who else is going to do it? So that's what I would say.
Yeah, always stay professional. I need to keep that one in my back pocket at
Yeah.
times because, yeah, that's the one that's a little challenging very often, but always stay professional. I like that. I like that. And I think self-confidence is a very, very, very big thing as well, especially in this space and finding a community. So thank you so much, Ivory. And Jeremy, I'll take it across to you.
Thanks. Sorry, I had a little issue with the mic. Yeah, I think it's interesting because as we move through these spaces, we learn. I'm 28. You know, it's been a learning by doing, and I think I can see it in the chat quite a bit. And there's people who've been through this different ways. I think it's always about, you know, I think it's been said before about finding your people, finding how they can build you up, deal with those things like imposter syndrome, but also give you the kind of knowledge that maybe it would take you years to go and get. And instead of having several conversations, having several, you know, recommendations takes you further and faster sometimes. And in this very limited amount of time, that's key. You know, I think it's a case, my advice for other young people is, yeah, reach out to other young people, definitely connect. I've been, you know, in Climate Week and UNGA just now, you know, being able to meet people in their 20s, and I'm thinking all the energy, all that, you know, ambition and stuff, that can be easily burnt out if you don't take care of yourself. So there's so many things that you can just learn from within this kind of space. I think it's also speaking to something I already mentioned, when you think about where we're all coming from, right? We know that 4 billion people today could be termed as youth. You know, it's half the world's population. But 90% of that youth is from the global south. The global south also has 70% of the world's coastlines. And that's something Dr. Asha Devos, a marine biologist from Sri Lanka, often puts out. And it's a case that, you know, talent, you know, the ability to go out there, or, you know, this view of the world, it can be distributed equally, but access to have your voice heard in these things is not. So I think it's also, if you're coming from a small island developing state, even within the developing world, it's hard to get your voice out, you know, in the group of 77 in China. But even when you go further out into the developing and developed world space, you find yourself even more turned around and in between these fights. So I think especially for the global south, especially for small and developing states, we definitely need to put our voices out there, because it's so hard to break through the noise sometimes, because there's so many other bigger voices. You know, right now you look at how natural disasters are followed and against other things happening around the world. There's a lot of things that you think, how do we address these issues if we're not able to see it all equally, or see how much it impacts certain states more than others? So that's one thing. And, you know, it's just some quick fire one is, I think we need to show our value. Again, it goes back to that we're not just youth, we have all these other things. I think once you show your value, like I was able to work with an amazing team back in Seychelles who did a huge project that brought all of us up and taught us so much, but we showed our value and we basically became something that you could trust. And it was something that people could further buy into. And I think that's the thing, you got to bring others with you and they will bring you with you, and that trust will carry on. And I think if you enter spaces that you don't like, you have a couple of choices. You can leave or stay. And sometimes because you're professional, because you have purpose, it's about survival, you need to stay. But just because you stay doesn't mean you can't redesign it. And when the more people on your side again, you can redesign these spaces. So we're already seeing that in some cases. I know for, as Ivory's put out, you know, these youth office for UN, that's something that's only been in around, you know, just this year being figured out. And even a youth envoy, it's been a couple of years. We now see it as a climate youth envoy. I think the UAE has just announced that they will be helping delegations ensure that there will be youth on their delegations. So spaces are becoming more inclusive and changing. We need to keep that going. And the more of us and the more people that we're talking to who are on the same team for the same purpose, we will get there together. Only issue is time. But yeah, we're not monolithic. We're definitely able, and we'll help each other.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jeremy. And I love to show your value. I feel like that one is very, very powerful. And like you say, sometimes we enter space, we might not like it. It might not even be for us, but it's important to stay and help redesign it and reshape it and everything. So thank you so much for sharing that. And Maisie, your words of advice?
think one of my key words of advice is do not work by yourself, because I tried doing that the first time I started and it was so hard. So if you're interested in going into activism or the climate space, do not work on a project by yourself and think that you can juggle it like everything. You have to get together with people that are like-minded and that have the same vision and passion and drive as you, and you'll see that you will take your project more further than if you carry it out by yourself. So you have to get together with and work together with other youths that have the same vision, passion, and drive as you. And also we need more island developing states representatives out there on the international stage to encourage more of our youth back at home that they can also do that as well, and to motivate them to continue the work that they're doing back at home. So yeah, that's one of my key encouragements, to not work by yourself, but to work with a team of people.
Thank you so much, Maisie. And wow, do not work by yourself. Listen, when I tell you, I have been trying to work by myself and crashing and burning religiously. And you would think I would learn, but somewhere along the line, I still, yeah, that one is very hard. But we need a community. Like, we genuinely can't do it alone. And if it is you can't find a community at home, guess what? There's so many young people out there very much interested in this climate fight and ocean activism and all these things. And they are very much passionate and wanting to connect. And it gives you that level of motivation that you really need to keep going. And Sweelan, I see you're back. So you want to share with us your advice to young people interested in getting involved in this space?
Technical difficulties. Sorry about that.
It's okay. We're part of the island life.
Right? Okay. Advice. I love the talk about collaboration. Definitely can't be working in silos. We have to work together. We are all like SOE Alliance Youth, Sustainable Ocean Alliance, and they have this lovely broad community, and we're able to, get to know each other, talk to each other, see what's going on in, other places, especially us as islanders and from the global south, seeing what works for them and what can work for us. And I think we could take it a step further sometimes as well, and collaborate, get together and create our own spaces, because sometimes, things aren't designed for us. And we have Khadija here, who is the founder of Ecovybz, and she would have created her own space. And she's very much into storytelling, like find your passion and find what it is you're good at, and, make a splash with it. And I'd also say use your voice. As cliche as that sounds, like lend your voice to a cause. I think all of us have one of those, and that definitely can't be taken away from us. So use your voice. And I like to use this example of basically, so we had International Coastal Cleanup recently, and you probably, like, sometimes I think, why do we go to the beach every year or constantly to clean up the beaches when it's going to get back dirty again? And then you're probably thinking, it's not my responsibility, like I didn't leave this trash here. But at the end of the day, the beaches are public good, and we all, benefit from it. Recreation, for its aesthetics, we're connected to the water. And until there are certain systems in place, like, stopping the large generation of waste and its consumption and behavioral change of a society, that's our responsibility at the end of the day. And for some people's lived realities, they are going through more and bigger social issues and social injustices, and they cannot connect to you telling them about this environmental issue. But if you try to connect it and you let them know that, this plastic is going to turn into microplastics, now microplastics is going to end up in a fish that's going to end up on your plate, maybe the connection could be made. And that's you using your voice and you telling people, like, you could stop this by simply just throwing your trash away accordingly and not littering. And I think our voice is our biggest power, and we need to use that more and champion for the things that we want in this space. So yeah, that's my advice.
Thank you so much, Sweelan. And as she said, find your superpower, find your talent, channel it, and use your voice. And if it is that there are spaces where your voices are not welcome, well, then guess what? There are spaces where it is welcome. So try and find that and use it as much as possible, because we are all, this is our planet. We are here. We love it. We love the environment, especially as SIDS youth. We love the beach. We love nature. We love all these things, and we want to see future generations benefit from it, right? So it is up to us, yourself, to find your talent, find your voice, and use it as much as possible. And also, like Jeremy said, we can't forget that intergenerational connectivity and feeling empowered and believing in ourselves. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining our lovely panel. And I know we had a great conversation, and such great youth present. I know each of them personally, and I'm so glad that they were able to respond to the call to be here to share their thoughts and opinions with you all. And very quickly, before we wrap things up, you want to tell people where they can find you on social media. Real quick, we only have like about 5 minutes left, so I will go first. You can follow me on social media at Ecovybz, as well as the other partner who organized this youth session, CESaRE. You could also find them on social media, Journal of CESaRE. Be sure to reach out to them also. So Jeremy, your social media handles.
Can you hear me? Thanks.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a bit of a mess, but I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, on Twitter. You can get me on Twitter on Mahe Situated. I've just dropped my Instagram in the chat, Turtle Commuter. And if on LinkedIn, it's Jeremy Ragan. Happy to connect. Lovely to collaborate with people who are moving in this space. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And Ivory?
Yeah, I can be found on LinkedIn too, just my first and last name, Ivory Vogt. And I'm on Instagram, same thing. Happy to connect with you guys there as well.
Lovely. And Swilon?
Yeah, same. I'm Swilon Reno. LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. If you still like Facebook, I'm there as well. You can just get me at Swilon Reno.
Okay, and Maisie, you want to tell our audience where they can find you on social media?
I'll paste my details in the chat. You can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter.
Okay, lovely. And well, a very special thank you to Island Innovation. I know that they have been working very hard to put this summit together, and it's been lovely. They had such great conversations during the course of the week, and it ended with a bang, of course, the amazing youth that were present and sharing. So once again, thank you so much, Island Innovation, for having us and for giving us a platform to share our voices and thoughts and opinions on very important issues facing youth, especially in the ocean and climate space. And once again, to our lovely audience, be sure if anything resonated with you or you would like to connect to any of us, please do feel free to reach out. We have so much more knowledge and experience that we could share with you, and we are very much happy and willing to do so. And I would just like to thank all of you all for joining me. Ivory, Jeremy, Swilon, Maisie, thank you so much for joining and answering the call and sharing and being such great activists and doing the work that you do. I'm so proud and so happy to call you all my friends and to know that we are all on different spaces in different avenues making change. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
And we'll hope to see you in 2 hours at the closing ceremony. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye.